Unrest gripping our country. As we said at the top of this broadcast, it feels like we're on the brink of a major cultural shift. But what comes next? And how do we have those difficult conversations about this moment and then the path forward? I hope this next story will help you answer both those questions. The deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and Tony McDade have sparked coast-to-coast protest.
Black lives do matter!
Black lives do matter!
And led to conversations about race and inequities in America.
For many, this may have been a moment of awakening, but for others, they've been in a lifetime of oppression.
Jennifer Ingram is the founder and CEO of Calibrated Lens, a Cincinnati-based equity and inclusion firm. She says it's not the responsibility of Black and brown individuals to teach others about racism in this moment.
When I talk about harm reduction, not asking people of color or folks from marginalized communities to explain racism or these issues to you, but instead you doing your own due diligence.
And that due diligence, Jennifer believes, starts with serious self-reflection.
I think the first step is understanding your whiteness and digging into what that means and how your views of race have been constructed over time.
To me, I think it started out as listening and listening differently, listening with a different lens in those conversations.
I've known Brianna Layton for more than a decade, but recently I noticed that she was using social media to bring awareness to issues of race. She told me an experience as the only white person in a restaurant a few years ago opened her eyes to her own privilege.
What I could not shake throughout that dinner is some of the most important people in my life feel that way when they walk through 95% of the doors in America.
So Brianna started listening to podcasts about social justice and reading books about race to educate herself.
You need to do your own work. And when I say work, researching, learning, there are several books and articles that are available with practical steps that you can take towards better understanding the experiences of people of color.
And with understanding comes the responsibility to be actively engaged in the fight for racial equality. Some would call this being an ally or a person who is willing to stand with and support members of a marginalized community.
Allyship is a great first step, but we've got to get beyond passive allyship to being an active accomplice and realizing that accomplices are focused on dismantling structures that oppress people.
Centuries of oppression that cannot and will not be undone overnight.
This is not something that we can intellectualize as a problem to be solved.
I think it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be because it's not a simple problem to solve.
A problem that's complex, layered, and multi-generational.
In reality, it's the inequities and the weathering of Black bodies, the grief that folks are carrying from generations and generations of trauma. I think in order for us to truly understand this moment and what we're witnessing, we can't limit it to one instance or one event.
So I've tried and tried to put into words what I'm feeling right now as a Black man, and I can't. Like so many others, though, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm frustrated, and I'm hurting. But I'm also hopeful. I'm hopeful that things may finally change. Confronting racism and the inequities in our society is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, and it should. But it's my hope that we lean into those feelings and really examine what they mean, because I truly believe that's the only way that we come out of this moment better than before. Good night.